Welcome back to the Small Business Mindset. On this episode, I want to talk about hiring for your company. As an entrepreneur myself and thinking about what the trajectory is for my business and my team, it can be a little daunting. Even something as simple as hiring an assistant can be a little daunting. I had the privilege and the pleasure this summer of working with an intern. He was a soon-to-be college senior and had connected with him a number of months ago to talk about what it could look like for him to work with me this summer. Now, I know for him, he was looking for a way to engage with a potential career when he's done with school, and I was looking for a way to engage with somebody from a younger generation to not only see how we could work together, but how they would enhance what I offer and my company. I know many of you that listen to this podcast, you're maybe solopreneurs, meaning you're a one-person business, or maybe you operate a small company on your own, or maybe you're looking to build a team. And how do you hire those people that complement your skills and that make your team even better? Internships are a fantastic way to test drive something, maybe for a short term, to see if it's a fit. I know I've always been a believer that I can teach anybody a skill, or quite honestly, anyone can learn a skill to be competent in industry. Now, with the caveat that some industries, namely industries that you need a certain type of degree, let's say the medical field or the law field, or something more technical where you have to have a certification or a degree to even get work in. The field that I'm in real estate. I do need a license within the state I operate in, but other than that, there's no college degree or necessary certification required. And the skills they learn in my profession, a lot of times it's learned through some coursework, but also on the job. Through a mentor or through the company they work with, and learning the environment and the community and legalities and how the process works from start to finish. The company that I had worked for the last 8 years didn't have an internship program, and that always frustrated me a bit because I'm thinking, we are in a world where we are constantly tapping into and understanding the economics around us, the business environment, however changing it might be. And the older I get and the older my colleagues get, I'm like, we need to consistently be tapping into a younger demographic to understand not only what makes them tick, what they're interested in, but how they do business. Because the future is unfortunately not getting older, it's getting younger. And how our future generations want to interact with us as people exchanging business and promoting business, that's very important to me. So I had an opportunity for the first time over the holiday break last year to engage with a college student to do a project-based internship. And that was fun. It was a great test drive for me to see, if my collaboration with a college-age student could work. And it worked out great. But it was about a week or two long. And then, he completed the project and he was done. At the same time, I was chatting with another young man, a college student, who, to say, hey, listen, I'm thinking of hiring for a college internship over the summer months. What do you think? And I led with the exclusion that I'm like, you're going to be my guinea pig. I haven't done this before. Now, granted, yes, I've worked with younger people over the years and had younger reports to my position I was in, but this would be a unique situation. And I will be honest with you, it was a little intimidating. I was first afraid that I might not have enough work for them to do, and I hired him on a part-time basis. And as we went through the process, I had to be diligent and make sure that I was communicating appropriately, letting them know what the goals were for our time together during the week, during the month, during the summer. And I set up a big project. Here, my expectation by the end of the summer, your goal is to help me complete this project. And so for those of you that are listening today or watching today, and maybe being on the fence of, let's say you're a solopreneur, meaning you are a one-person business, and maybe you even operate out of your home. If you've kicked around, how can I incorporate somebody else into my team? I want you to ask yourself a few questions. A lot of the conversations I have with business owners has to do with time versus money. And what I mean by that is that think of all the things you do in your day, or all the things you do in your week, all those tasks, right? It might be something as simple as putting appointments on your calendar, to filing things, to making sure your database is updated from your client files, things like that. Then I want you to pull back for a minute and think about, as the entrepreneur, as the person running the business, right? What makes the biggest impact to you as far as what moves the dial? What puts the money in your bank account? So think about those activities. Are those activities the same or different than those activities where, wait a minute, anyone can do this, right? As I said at the beginning of this podcast, anyone can learn a skill. Anyone can. Anyone can learn how to manage a Microsoft Office suite. I'm dating myself a little bit here, I apologize. Anyone can manage that. Quite honestly, anyone can learn how to use TikTok. Anyone can learn how to design a graphic design platform or an email database or a social media host site. Anyone can do that. That's a skill, believe it or not. Is it worth your time? And this is where I want to challenge you if you're a solopreneur. Is it worth your time to dedicate time out of your day to learn that process? What's the benefit? And you might say, well, the benefit is I need extra exposure, or the benefit is I need to make sure and be connecting with my clients on a more regular basis in a quick and easy format, right? But if you break it down, think about the activities that you do every day that move the dial. Is the activities you do every day, is that more business development? Is it networking? And I'm speaking to myself here. Is it those activities where you're engaging with clients in a one-on-one setting and you are communicating and moving the dial? Things that cannot necessarily be functioned in a virtual environment. It can only be done because of the connections you've made and the impressions you make and the presentations you've given to get the business. The rest of it, and that's where the time comes in. The rest of it, could you delegate it? Could you delegate it? And what could you delegate? I'm going to raise my hand right here. I am awful at delegating. I'm awful at it. I think I approach the world as I can do that easier. I can be faster at it. The amount of time it takes me to explain it to somebody else, I could have already had it done. But is that really true? Is it really true that if you spend the extra time, right? The extra time probably that they're soaking up in the evenings or weekends away from family and friends and doing the things you want to do to maybe recharge your batteries or relax, are you spending the time putting those processes in place and setting the stage and writing the email and, booking the thing? Could someone else really be doing it? And can someone else be doing it and have a learning experience for them as far as how do you build a business? The other thing is the money side. So we talked about the time side. What is your time worth to you? Is your time worth having time back, hours or minutes back to do the things you want to do or spend time with people that you really want to spend time with? On the flip side, it's the money side. I think as a solopreneur, you have to be mindful of your budget. You know how much you can potentially bring in, or I hope you at least have a baseline. I know I can bring in X amount of business, the minimum. And maybe that minimum is, I know I can generate $30,000 a year on this business. But let me ask you this, is that enough? Is that enough for you to be happy with the success of the business? Or have you set a goal for yourself? I want to make six figures. I want to hit $100,000 a year. What's it going to take for you to get from 30 to 100? Is it sphere of influence? Is it more customers? Is it somebody or something helping out on the back end to get you so organized and set you up for that pitch where you can then capture the more clients? Is it someone or something in the background processing the orders and getting them packaged and delivered and looking all pretty for the next one? Where do you fall into that process, and what's the magic that you bring to your business? So for me, hiring an intern was multifaceted. First, I wanted to make sure, and I wanted to engage with a younger demographic. That was number one in my mind. I have the honor and privilege of being a guest lecturer for the University of Kansas School of Business. I do this every semester, and we talk about real estate. But I think what's important to me in doing that and engaging and being a guest lecturer in that space, not just to teach about real estate, because honestly, any of these young men and women could, open a web page or read a book about how to do commercial real estate. It's not rocket science. But what's important to me in that engagement is having that one-on-one time with that class to be able to say, tell me what you think. Tell me how this impacts you. What do you want to learn more about? What's interesting to you? Because that drives my business. Getting that feedback from a demographic that's considerably 20 plus years younger than me. They're looking at the world differently. They're approaching their decisions differently. What matters to them is very different. For those of you that are like me in their mid-40s, You think about how you started out in your 20s. Your life might look very different than it does today, and your life probably looks very different than the 20 somethings of, 2022. What does their lifestyle look like? I know if I backed up to when I was in my junior, senior year of college, I was dating the guy that soon to become my husband. I was thinking about what am I going to do when I grow up, of course, but I had not selected the career path that I ultimately ended up on. I didn't know that yet. I knew I wanted something that engaged with people. I knew I was looking for a job that paid me something. Wouldn't that be nice to come out of school with a job? And my outlook was a little different. I didn't know if I wanted to be a six-figure earner or above. I didn't know if I wanted to be a solopreneur or own my own company. That really wasn't in my mindset yet. I think what I was more concerned with is, being independent, having some flexibility to do that. And at the time, I was in a serious relationship that looked like it was going to get more serious and more permanent because we ultimately got engaged and then got married. So that was really where my world was at. At the same time in our young life, my husband and I ended up, we got married at 23 and 24, and we ended up buying a house right away. So a lot of the younger people I speak with, that's really not the place they're in, and that's perfectly fine. But then I want to understand why. What does their lifestyle look like, and what are trends I'm seeing, buying trends, living trends, things they focus on as far as how they spend their time and money that might be very different than I currently live or I used to live. Because however much we want to understand a younger demographic, because we were young once too, right? I mean, we were all five once too. But how do we truly embrace and understand the next generation of leaders, of business owners, of people that could be our clients? So that was first and foremost, was very important to me to engage with an intern. The second thing was, I'm getting to the point in my business where I need more help, and I need to be really embracing delegation. I'm not quite sure if I'm ready to hire an assistant per se, but I think I wanted to find somebody that was invested and interested enough in my business to push me a little bit, to ask me to do more. And I know if I hired an intern and said, hey, listen, this is a taste of what it's like to get in this industry. If you're interested enough, let's continue the conversation and take the next step. And my hope for the young man that I worked with this year, I think he's going to come and work with me over holiday break this year, so December timeframe of this year. And then after he graduates next spring, I said, you would love to have you back if you want to make this your career. Let's talk about that. And I hope he does. But if he doesn't, that's okay too. It allowed me to test run a lot of these things. What's going to be challenging for me as he wraps up his internship with me is determining, okay, he did a lot of really valuable work for me over the summer. I gave him a lot of tasks, and those tasks might have been, like most recently, we are working with a client who is considering buying a property, and the property includes an existing business. And we signed a non-disclosure agreement so we could get some financials from that existing business and do a deep dive into, okay, if he's acquiring the property that has an existing company on it, is that company viable? So we had a great opportunity, and I could use his strengths as an accounting major to be like, okay, here's what we have. We have a profit and loss statement, we have a balance sheet, we have existing leases, and we kind of have an idea of what their programming revenue is and their staff expenses through salaries. Take all that information and put it into a spreadsheet that helps us determine what truly is the value of the business. And is the business, after all the expenses are paid, and we kind of understand a lay of the land, is it worth it enough for our client to proceed and buy it? Does it make sense? So it was a great exercise with finances, which I knew he had a skill, but he had to expand it in a different way, but also evaluate it from a property and a business growth perspective. So I think that was a great exercise for the two of us to go through, but I gave him the work to do. I could have done it myself, absolutely, but that was one task I thought, you know what, this would be a huge learning opportunity for him, and he is perfectly capable. And that will then set him up, and me up too, for future, information and, working through problems together when we meet with clients. The beauty of what I do for a living is the fact that no situation is ever the same. No client is ever the same. Their needs are different. Their desires are different. And providing value in the way that I do, meaning doing a deep dive into the opportunity through finances, through staffing, through determining, okay, is this a good fit for the client? or the seller, whomever's putting the deal together, I'm like, does this make sense in the long run? And do you have the skills and the team capable of making this happen? And the beauty of what I do, especially working with an intern, is realizing that my area of focus, which is real estate, is more than just real estate. What we do every day and the learning opportunity that comes both for me and for him, my intern, is the fact that we are expanding our knowledge base and we are helping each other understand the world around us, whether it's the economic environment, the community growth potential, or partnership opportunities, and ways that we could really niche ourselves into to realize we're providing a lot of value to our client base. And that helps expand our reach. So if you are considering taking the leap and hiring somebody, hiring an intern is a great way to start. The other way you could really tap into utilizing somebody but not making a long-term commitment is hiring a virtual assistant. There are a number of sites. There are also a number of employment agencies that probably exist within your area. Sometimes you might refer to them as temp agencies, but a lot of temp agencies, and I'm going to use that word a little bit broadly here, employment agencies, they have the opportunity to work with you to say, okay, listen, who are you trying to hire? And you could say, you know what? I think I only need somebody for 5 to 10 hours a week. It's not a lot, but here's specifically what I need them to do for me, and outline that. It might be something as, I need them to organize my files and go through my emails and file them in the appropriate boxes where I make my clients. I need them to take all this data that I've amassed and file it, even scan it in and file it. Or I'm gonna basically throw up on them on the email, and I need them to discern it. I need them to set appointments for me. Here's my calendar. Or maybe you use a service like a Calendly, and they can set up those appointments. That way, you don't have to worry about going back and forth with clients trying to set appointments if you just delegate that to somebody else. So employment agencies or temporary agencies can help you find somebody on conservatively a temporary basis that could turn into a part-time basis. And the way a lot of them work is they will hire them on contract. So it's not a necessarily long-term commitment. You can hire somebody 5 to 10 hours a week with a certain set of skills, and you decide how they work. Do you need them to come into the office every day? Can they work remotely? How are you going to be engaging with them? Whatever. And then they are the employee of that temporary agency for 90 days. There's different contracts you can sign with them. But after 90 days, it's almost like a probationary period. If they work out, awesome. You continue on down the road, and you can decide, okay, do I hire them and they come work with me and work on that with your tax accountant and figure out how that works out with your financial? Or do they stay more of a contract employee and you work through the agency you hired with them? So there's lots of flexibility here. Another avenue that I've explored and actually used in the past is as a virtual assistant, and there's a lot of different platforms for that too. I've engaged with Upwork, and it's upwork.com. I hired a virtual assistant on that a number of years ago, and it was super simple and super easy. Now, granted, the process fell on me, meaning I had to go on there and determine, okay, what am I hiring for? But the website walks you through a lot of prompts. What type of skill set, what type of person, where can they work, things like that. What are you willing to pay them? And you kind of give a range. And then the Upwork network and their software selects that person within their database, people that are looking for jobs, and presents you with several options that then you can decide, okay, yes, no, whatever. You can decide to move on to an interview, and that interview usually takes place virtually over Zoom or Microsoft Teams, or you can over the phone, however you want to handle it. And then you can decide to hire or not to hire. And you can decide, are you hiring them indefinitely? Are you hiring them for a month? I mean, you set the parameters. And the beauty of it is that Upwork or an interface like that handles all the back end stuff. So they hire, the contract and how you're all working together. So it's a really easy way to test it before you fully have to commit. Because I'll tell you what, it is intimidating to think about, gosh, I really do need some extra help. I'm not yet ready to commit to having somebody literally on my team full time that I'm responsible for. I'm responsible for paying income taxes and considering benefits and all those things. So there's lots of different ways to do it. People that are more contract employees, I know in this day and age, like the flexibility because they can work for you and they can work for someone else and they can work for someone else. And so they get the creativity and the flexibility of doing lots of different things. You just have to make sure and set it up on the front end to make it most productive for both of you. And I think that's really the key. So if you're someone that's thinking about, gosh, it would be so wonderful just to have some help, right? And have some delegation. Think of it twofold. It could be help for you, but also thinking about it as a learning opportunity for them and a way for them not only to get a job that gets paid, right? But also get exposure into a market that they might want to explore a little more. What would that look like for you? If you could hire the right person, and sometimes it is so hard to determine what the right person is on paper. It's hard to get personality and drive and vision and communication style on paper, giving you several avenues that you could explore that take it to the next level. You qualify them on the paper, but then you hire them in person, even if it's virtual. And that's very important, because the last thing anyone wants is to have your style not gel with somebody that you want to be on your team, that gets where your motivation points are, but also is driven just as much as you are to make sure that they can handle things when you're not there, taking them down every step of the way and reminding them every step of the way. So in all, I'm so thrilled I had this opportunity to engage with an intern. I definitely am going to do it again, and that will, help me move into, hiring somebody that works with me on a regular basis. So I hope these tools and tricks have given you a little bit of insight into working with somebody to assist you with your business.